to request everybody to just stand up. It's a post-lunch session. I assumed you will all be sleepy. And if you could just turn around, face somebody, give them a really nice smile, shake their hands. If you feel like, even give somebody a hug. Just a little shared moment with everybody. Thank you so much. Please have a seat. I'm going to start with a little clip from the Friends. I don't know if Friends is still popular in this generation, but mine watch Friends all the time. We've watched it, I think, 5, 7, 8 times. A little clip to just set the context. Can someone play it, please?
Hey.
Oh, my friend Sarah had a great time last night. Yeah, so you're going to call this one back?
No? You don't know what your great friend did? We were out to dinner, okay? We were getting along, having a really nice time, and then, out of nowhere...
That's it?
Joey doesn't share food!
So Joey doesn't share food, but a lot of us can't get by life without sharing a lot of stuff. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. I'm here to talk to you about the art of sharing. But before we begin, I just want to clarify what we're not talking about. We're not talking about, the kind of sharing where you have to sacrifice things for others. I'm not talking about the sharing where you give away things. Much required in today's day and age. A lot of my friends do that a lot. I do that a lot. But that is not what we're talking about. What we are also not talking about is what all of us do all the time, which is overshare on social media. I don't want to see people's nails, and I don't want to see their pets for sure. What I am talking about today is the kind of sharing which simultaneously requires both, fulfills both needs of altruism and self-interest. The kind of sharing of ideas, of skills, of knowledge. The kind of sharing that lets us be real people, people who expose their vulnerabilities to the right kind of people at the right time for the right things. That's the kind of sharing that we're talking about, things that make us a better person. So I'm going to, just to elaborate, share with you one anecdote from my college life. This was in first year of college, engineering college, first few months. I was in a room with a friend of mine. Her name is Sandy. She was not my friend back then. So Sandy and I are sitting together trying to study. Sandy is very quietly sitting with that book, going through the same thing, the same page for 10, 15 odd minutes. I'm a restless soul. I'm sitting with the same book, the same chapter, and I've already flipped 15 pages. Now I'm looking and wondering to myself, like, why is this girl not turning the page? And Sandy is clearly looking at me and wondering, what is wrong with this woman? How can she read so fast? So after 15 minutes, she kind of breaks the ice and says, listen, tell me, are you seriously reading that fast? It's inhuman. And I just look at her and I'm like, I can't understand anything. So she just burst out laughing. And she's like, neither can I. And that 1 minute of honest confession between the two of us made sure that we became study buddies. We became roommates. And we probably are the reason why we passed engineering. Otherwise, we would have spent 5 or 7 years doing the same course. Sandy would sit for hours together to understand a difficult concept, which I had no patience for. And then she would sit me and quickly explain it to me. I could visualize things very well, so I would draw it out and I would condense an entire chapter on a page literally of this size. Now this page would go up, we were flatmates, so it would go up on the walls. And while we were walking up and down and doing our regular stuff, because it was on the wall, we could look at it and we remembered it. And that's how we revised and we got along with life. 17 years later, we pretty much do the same thing. She really helped me write this talk, so I thought I should give her some credit for it at the start. So, while I was researching for this talk, like Amol shared about startups, my first instinct was to share about life of a first-time entrepreneur. I circulated the topic to a few of my friends, and after some brainstorming, a friend of mine, Priyanka, basically came back and said, listen, the art of sharing, that is what you should be talking about. And I'm looking at her, I said, I don't know anything about this topic. Why would I talk about it? And then we started recounting, doing our research, we started doing, recounting my life and things like that of stuff to take. And what we found was a very interesting study by Professor Adam Grant. He teaches at the Wharton School of Business. And Professor Grant studied people and success, what makes people successful. And he said there are three kinds of people. There are the givers, the takers, and the matchers, right? I'm sure all of you are wondering which category you fall in. There is a really nice test of 15 questions on his website. You can go take that, and you'll be able to figure out which category you fall in. I was curious, and I found that I fell in the givers category, 67%. That sort of triggered more sort of thoughts, and we started trying to pull out stuff. But before we go there, who do you think is the most successful across industries from this category? Sorry? Matchers? Yeah. So obviously, we all instinctively feel that matchers would be the winners, but matchers don't win in the long run because matchers look at everything very transactionally. It is, if you give me something, I'll return it to you, or if I'm giving you something, I will ensure that you return it to me, right? Whatever that favor or that introduction is. And matchers don't always win in the long run. Surprisingly, it is the givers who win in the long run. And this they've seen across levels of, your designation or whatever years of experience you have, or across industries. They've seen that givers are the ones who always win. So we started sort of, it triggered a thought in my head that let me see if I came out as a 67% giver, where did I do these things and where did it really help me back? And a little story from DesiCrew came to my head. So I started DesiCrew in 2007. It was the first rural BPO in the country. It was my first venture. I knew very little about running a company back then. In 2009, I got an email, and the email said, "Hi, I'm the CEO of a leading company. I want to quit and I want to start my own rural BPO, and I wanted to come and see what DesiCrew is doing and how you get things done." So I'm sitting there looking at that email, and like every entrepreneur's first instinct would be, why would I let you in? There were only 2 rural BPOs in the country at that time. DesiCrew was running in a private limited company format, and the other one was running as a foundation. So we were the model to copy, to take ahead. And I'm like, why would I share this with you? But given the kind of person that I am, I said, yes, please come to our office, we'll show you around. We hosted him for 2 days, sent him to our village office. He studied everything, came back, and gave me a list of things that I could improve because he was the CEO of a company, right? He knew what was wrong. I didn't know that. He came and gave me a list of things we could improve. Very useful. It didn't end there. 3 years later, I bumped into him again at a conference in Delhi. And, polite conversation at conference. He asked me something. I was at my lowest energy at that point of time, in a dilemma whether I should quit DesiCrew and hand over, not quit. In a huge dilemma, and he looked at me and he said, you know what, you're really down on motivation. When I needed inspiration, I came to your office. Now that you need inspiration, you need to come to mine. And I just looked at him. I said, he doesn't have to invite me. This is a competitor. Clearly by then, he was 3 years into business. He didn't have to invite me. So I went up, packed my bags, went up to his office in the hills. Beautiful place, totally energized me. But at that year and that month particularly, there was a big milestone that both companies were hitting. We had both raised our Series A funding, fairly large rounds of funding for both of us. And their company had got 3 times higher valuation than ours. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand. We were an older company. We had more revenue than them. We had more people than them. They had taken our model. How could they get more valuation than us? So obviously, after a long walk in the hills, things opened up again. And I asked him, I said, what did you guys do? Very nicely, he shared with me all the things and how they negotiated. Again, things which I didn't know as a first-time entrepreneur. I learned a great deal. Story doesn't end there. Next year, both of us, our second Series A funding, second rounds got declined. Panic calls, again, exchanging notes. How do we keep our companies afloat and how do we survive? And we realized that day that it wasn't just the companies, but as founders and as individuals, we had connected so much that only we could help pull back our companies out of this sort of situation that we had. He wasn't the only competitor who came to us. A lot of other competitors came to learn from us. We shared openly with everybody. And what did that do for us? I think I missed some slides, I'm sorry. Yeah, it helped us really build a strategic position. Because everybody in industry knew that they had to come to us. We were the ones who were doing, a little bit of innovative stuff. They learned from us. But the government of India, when they started writing that national rural BPO policy, they invited us. They only invited 2 companies to comment on the policy, and we were one of them. What it made me realize was, A, that it gave us a very good strategic position, but it also gave me as an individual a wider worldview of how to manage things outside. The second thing that I wanted to share today with all of you was this little story about all of you. You've probably walked into XLRI, the gates and the admission you've taken here to become leaders in the corporate world or not-for-profits or whatever else you want to do, maybe start your own companies. Some of you are clearly very focused on grades. Some of you are very focused on a lot of things outside the classroom as well, such as the people who've organized this event and a lot of other things. I think there's a huge difference that happens in those 2 things, because some of these kids who've organized these events and have contacted so many of us, I'm sure we weren't the only speakers who they contacted many more. Some of us said yes, some of us said no. I think now they're on first name basis with so many people, that these are activities such as this have opened up networks for them, which will go a long way. Being on first name basis with people in the industry across will not only help them today by organizing a successful event, but also help them go forward in their careers much faster. If you fast forward 20 years from now and you need something, who do you think you will call? Will you call the person who you know on a first name basis with and know other characteristics of them and facets of them, or will you just call someone who was in your class? The answer is absolutely, in front of you. So shared experiences such as this help build relationships which are invaluable and go a long way. The other observation that I wanted to kind of share with you was a lot of networks that are sort of popping up. I think more and more our lives are going online, are going digital, and whether we realize it or not, but we are contributing to a lot of these networks. You might have heard of BNI, it's a business network. People find sales contacts and exchange sales contacts there. At Toastmasters, they exchange feedback for public speaking. At the local tribe, which is launched by a friend of mine, people come and exchange skills. You're a storyteller, come share your stories and teach someone how to tell better stories. You can sell your goods. At Couchsurfing, we exchange our houses and dreams of travel. At Alcoholics Anonymous, we share our personal stories to heal our own selves. I think at the end of the day, the more we share, the more relevant we become in each of these networks is what we've all realized. If we don't have a rating on a network like that, next time on Couchsurfing, no one's opening a door for us. If we don't open up our houses, again, no one's opening a door for us. While we were doing this talk, and even otherwise, a lot of my friends asked me, how and why am I able to share so freely? And without the fear of being left behind. We started a not-for-profit, and we were 3 co-founders at that point of time. The other 2 would always resist collaboration with another entity, saying, but this is our idea, let's do this. And then I would push them a little bit. I didn't realize it. This is a story they told me. They said, you would always push us to share and just share so freely, and we weren't sure if we should. But I think the only reason I feel that sharing doesn't harm is because there are 2 ways to look at it. Either you're going to get something good out of it, if nothing, and you feel hurt, you feel burnt out, that someone's taken advantage of you. There was a beautiful man, Lakshman Singh ji, and he's an Ashoka fellow and works in a village in Rajasthan. I always remember his words. He says that many times we feel that we've overshared or we've given too much of ourselves to something. We feel very hurt and burnt out. But if we look at it, instead of asking negative questions, if we just look at that episode as a learning, like you came to XLRI, you paid a huge fee to get this degree, and that is your lesson in the University of Life. Just look at it as that, move on. It's okay, you gave it to someone else, a lot of people are giving back to you as well. So in the end, all I'd like to say is that sharing has to be conscious, and conscious sharing is a 2-way process. It's not a 1-way process at all. It involves give and it involves take as well. And sharing is as much a tool in the process of evolution as it is in the process of creation. But how much to share and when to share, your gut has to decide. No one else can decide for you. If you're comfortable, you should share as much as you can. The last thing I'd like to say is an observation that I've had in my corporate life. In our 20s, we are hired for the things that we can do. In our 30s, we are hired for the things that we can get done. In our 40s, we are hired for the people that we know who can access and get other things done. It is about your networks that get you the best job in your 40s. You guys, a lot of you are just starting out your career, this year or next year. And the only thing that I wanted to share was that the real conversations, lending a helping hand, these are the things which will help you build networks, networks that will live with you for life. And it takes years, so you can decide which direction you want to head in. I'll be outside waiting for all of you to share stories and hear yours. Thank you so much.